Imagine a moment that changes everything, a single promise that rewrites a life. He lost everything the day he was trapped in a wheelchair, until two barefoot orphan boys stopped him on the street. One stretched out his hand and whispered, "I'll heal your legs if you promise to take care of my brother." What began as an impossible promise turned into a miracle that would change all their lives forever. Can you picture yourself in his place, faced with a choice that could redefine your future? Before we dive in, let us know in the comments what time it is and where you're watching from. Let's start with Whisper Fable. The city sidewalk was loud with traffic, but to David, the sound was just another reminder of how far he had fallen. Once, he used to walk these streets in polished shoes, holding meetings on the go, shaking hands with people who mattered. Now, he rolled forward in silence, trapped in a wheelchair that seemed heavier with every push. His suit was still sharp. His face still carried a businessman's confidence. But inside, he was hollow. Nobody noticed him anymore. People's eyes darted away the moment they saw the chair. He hated it. Hated the pity. Hated being invisible. That's when he saw them point. Two barefoot boys stood on the edge of the sidewalk. They couldn't have been older than 4 or 5. Both wore white shirts and rolled-up denim overalls. Their curls were messy, their little feet darkened by dust from walking streets that didn't belong to them. One boy hung back, clutching the other's arm as though the world was too big for him. The other stepped forward with a strange steadiness in his eyes. David slowed his chair, confused. "Where are your parents?" he asked, his tone sharp, almost rude. He didn't mean to sound cruel, but he had no patience for strange encounters anymore. The boy didn't flinch. Instead, he stretched out his small hand. His fingers were trembling, but determined. "I'll heal your legs," he said softly, "if you promise to take care of my brother." David froze. His hands gripped the rims of his wheels. The boy's words cut through him like glass. Heal his legs? No doctor had been able to do that, and yet this barefoot child was offering it as though it were possible. "What did you just say?" David asked, his voice lowering. The boy stepped closer. "I can't do it for real," he admitted, his eyes glistening. "But I can try. I can pray. I can hold your legs and believe. But you have to promise me you won't leave him." He nodded. Toward the smaller twin, who stood quietly, his lip trembling, David scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his throat. "Are you serious? Do I look like someone who can take care of children? I can't even take care of myself." His voice cracked with anger he didn't know he still carried. The smaller boy pressed closer to his brother, whispering, "He doesn't want us, Eli. He'll leave like the others." The older one, Eli, tightened his jaw. "Maybe, but maybe he won't. Look at him." He turned his gaze back to David. "You're sitting in that chair, but you still look strong. You still wear a suit. You still have eyes that see us. Nobody else does. What would you do if a child saw strength in you that you couldn't see yourself?" David blinked, stunned. The boy's words burned through his pride. He wanted to turn away, roll down the street, leave them behind. But his hand didn't let go of Eli's tiny fingers. "Listen, kid," David muttered, shaking his head. "I don't have money to throw away on orphans. I don't have patience for pity stories, and I sure as hell don't need promises about miracles. Life doesn't work that way." Eli's grip didn't loosen. "We know life doesn't work at all if nobody cares." His voice was steady, but David could see tears forming at the corners of his eyes. "My brother hasn't eaten since yesterday. I told him today would be better. I told him someone would stop." The smaller boy whimpered. "You said someone kind." David's stomach twisted. He wanted to curse at them, to push his wheels and escape. But his throat tightened. He remembered the nights after his accident, lying in a hospital bed, begging anyone, God, doctor, strangers, to make it better. Nobody came. Nobody could fix him. And now, here were 2 children standing in front of him, offering the one thing he used to crave, belief. He tried to harden himself. "You think I'm your savior? I'm not. I've got nothing left to give." "You have more than nothing," Eli shot back, surprising him with the firmness in his tone. "You have a heart. You have arms. You have eyes that see my brother. That's already more than the world has given us." David felt his chest ache. He swallowed, unable to form words. The smaller boy clung tighter to his brother, whispering, "He's going to leave, Eli. Don't beg him. He'll only get mad." Eli's lips trembled. "I don't care if he gets mad." He stopped. "He's listening. That's enough." Then, louder, looking directly at David, he said, "If I kneel here and pray over your legs, will you at least think about us? Will you think about not leaving us tonight in the cold?" The demand was too heavy. David wanted to scream at them to go away, but his voice broke instead. "Why me?" he whispered, almost to himself. Eli answered without hesitation. "Because everyone else walked past." The street noise seemed to fade around them. David's breath shook. He couldn't move. For the first time in years, he wasn't the one being pitted. He was the one being asked to save someone else, and the boy's hand didn't let go. David sat frozen, Eli's small hand still gripping his. The smaller boy's wide eyes stared at him with both fear and hunger, waiting for his decision. For a long moment, he said nothing. He thought about pushing himself away, disappearing down the crowded street, pretending none of this happened. But when he looked into those eyes, the trembling lips, the barefoot toes pressing into the hard pavement, something inside him cracked. "Fine," David muttered, his voice rough. "You can come with me. Just for tonight. Don't expect much. I'm not what you think I am." Eli's face softened with relief, and the smaller boy leaned into his brother, whispering, "He didn't leave." David wheeled himself forward, leading them down the block. People stared as the twins followed the man in the wheelchair, their little hands brushing against the chair's wheels, almost afraid he would vanish if they let go. When they reached his small apartment, David hesitated. He had built his life on loneliness since the accident. Empty rooms, no voices, no interruptions. But when he opened the door and let them in, the silence was broken for the first time. That night, David gave them the only food he had, stale bread and canned soup. The boys ate quickly, almost desperately. He tried not to watch, but guilt clawed at him. He told himself he'd figure it out in the morning, maybe call a shelter. But when he wheeled toward his room, he saw them kneeling on the floor by his chair. "What are you doing?" he asked, annoyed. Eli looked up. "Praying for your legs." David exhaled sharply. "Kid, I told you it's no use. Doctors tried everything. Nothing worked. That's life." The boy's small hands pressed gently against his legs. "Maybe doctors can't. But maybe God can." David shook his head, but something about their persistence left him unable to stop them. Every night, it was the same. After eating whatever scraps David managed to provide, the twins would kneel in front of him. Their voices were soft, childlike, asking heaven for something impossible. At first, David dismissed it, even laughed bitterly under his breath. But within weeks, something changed. One morning, he felt a faint tingling in his calves. He froze, gripping the armrest of his chair. He told himself it was his imagination. But the sensation returned the next day, sharper, undeniable. He didn't tell the boys at first, afraid to give them hope he didn't believe in. But Eli noticed. "You felt it, didn't you?" he asked quietly, watching David's legs. David avoided his eyes. "It doesn't mean anything. Don't build your life on false hope." But the twins didn't stop. Every night, their little hands pressed against his legs. Every night, their voices filled his apartment with prayers. Against his will, David started to believe. He went back to physical therapy, something he had abandoned months earlier. The therapist raised an eyebrow when he described the tingling. "That's a good sign," she said carefully. "It means the nerves aren't completely gone. But it'll take work, a lot of work." David hadn't done much of that since the accident, not the kind that demanded faith and pain. But with the twins watching, whispering their prayers, he forced himself, slowly, painfully. He learned to move again. First small twitches, then shifting his feet, then bearing weight with braces. The days were long, the nights harder. Sometimes, he wanted to give up. But every time he collapsed in frustration, the twins knelt in front of him, pressing their foreheads to his knees. "You can," Eli would whisper. "Because we believe you can." Months passed. The man who once hated being seen in a wheelchair now found strength in being seen by two small boys who refused to give up on him. And then, one morning, it happened. David stood. His legs shook violently, his hands clutching the bars in therapy, but he stood. The boys cried out, clapping their tiny hands together. He turned his head toward them, his own eyes wet. I'm standing." The therapist nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, David, you're walking again." It wasn't instant. It wasn't easy. But step by painful step, supported by faith he never thought he'd have, David walked. Back at home, the twins waited at the door every evening, their small feet tapping impatiently until he returned. The first night he managed to walk through that door without his chair, the boys threw their arms around his legs, sobbing into the fabric of his trousers. David bent down, pulling them close. His voice cracked. "You healed me. Not my legs, my heart. And I promise I'll never let you go." For the first time since his accident, David no longer felt broken. And for the first time in their short lives, the twins no longer felt alone. Would you have stopped for those boys, or kept walking? Tell us in the comments. We read every story on Whisper Fable. Like if this touched your heart. Subscribe to Whisper Fable for more true stories of hope, struggle, and second chances. Share this video. Someone you know needs to see this miracle.